WNYT, Albany, in HD. This is Forum 13.
When we come back, we're going to talk about foster parenting and where there may be a place for you. Welcome back to Forum 13. I'm Phil Bailey. You don't have to be a perfect parent to change the course of a child's life. There are a lot of kids who need you. In fact, there are a lot more kids who need you than there are foster parents to provide for those kids. We are going to talk about foster parenting. We're joined by Bill Marszalek of the Northern Rivers Family of Services and Nancy Carr, who is a foster parent. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Is that a fair statement? There are so many more kids who need homes than there are foster parents to give them homes?
Absolutely. I mean, that's really why we're doing this campaign, because matching children with the right home is what helps us be successful and helps children find permanency through the process. So the more homes we have and the more people that are willing to open up their homes for us, I think the better chances we have to help families be successful.
Is there an estimate of how many children in the Capital Region need a foster parent but don't have one?
We always find homes for everybody. We want to make sure they're the best matches for everybody, because that's what helps us be truly successful.
Yeah. Yeah. How many foster parents are there in the Capital Region?
Oh, in the Capital Region, I'd have to say, I know we have well over 250 families within our purview, and then, you know, there's more out there as well, too, working with the counties, working with other agencies as well.
Yeah, and are you actively looking for more foster parents? I know the answer to this.
Yes. Every day. This is what we do.
Yeah. Northern Rivers Family of Services is kicking off an initiative, right, to educate Capital Region residents about foster care. It is called Give Hope a Home.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
We're hoping that, I mean, hope is the big piece, is that we believe that families and children that have a hope in their lives for a better future have a better chance for permanency and success. I use the word permanency a lot, Phil, because, you know, that's what we want for our children. Children that come into our care, they end up kind of in, just kind of out there. And we don't want them being out there. We want them knowing that they have some place to come home every day, whether it be with a foster parent, an adoptive parent, or back with their own families, which is what our true goal is in many circumstances.
Yeah. How does somebody become a foster parent?
Nancy, you want to talk a little bit about becoming a foster parent?
Absolutely. Well, it's not an overnight decision. In the case of my family, it took several years for us to actually come to the decision to get our certification. I was exposed to foster children and foster families through my line of work many years ago. And so it gave me a first-hand experience of seeing and meeting children and meeting families and seeing the great need there is for homes. And so through the years, I kept dropping little subtle hints with my husband saying, you know, we have an extra room in our house, we have some extra room in our heart for a child. And it just was never really the right time for us in our family. And then one day we sat down and revisited it and realized that, yeah, it may be that time. And we sat as a family with my teenage son as well. He was involved in the decision. And we came up with the reasons why we should be a foster family and the reasons why we shouldn't. And we really focused more on the why nots, because the whys are universal. These children need homes, these children need love, they need care, they need a place where they can thrive. And that's really everybody's reasonings as to why they should. But when it's the why nots, it's very personal to a family and your family style and your family dynamics. So we started talking about, well, the why nots. And then we would say, okay, well, what can we do to tweak our lifestyle to check that why not off our list? And so we're able to dwindle it down to just a handful of why nots. And then from there, we went to the foster agency and talked to them about our why nots. We talked to other foster parents and other foster children and adults that had gone through the foster care themselves to help us get a good view of, you know, what we'd be getting ourselves into. And so you can see it was not a short-term decision. It was long, because you're not just inviting these children into your home, you're inviting them into your lives and into your heart. And so there's a lot that needs to go into the decision.
And you need to take seriously the commitment you make to a child.
Yes.
Especially because most of these childs have been through some tough situations already, right?
Yes. And, one of the things that Nancy and I were actually talking about before we even came out here was, the matching piece that you were talking about is knowing, Nancy said, I thought I wanted to foster young babies, little babies, and then I realized that's not really for me. And that's a huge part of making that decision within being a foster parent. We got to match with what you're comfortable with it and what works for you, because it helps you be successful.
I could understand if there are a number of viewers out here saying, I could do that, but there's a lot to be afraid of. So let's just try to kind of run down some of these things on the list. I mean, first of all, must a foster parent have been a parent of their own children first?
No, they do not. We will work with you through that process. No experience necessary, so to speak. We give training. There's a 30-hour training prior to becoming a foster parent. We give trainings throughout your time as a foster parent. They're required of us every year that we'll have you do so many hours of various different concepts and ways of working with children. So yeah, we're always working with you to help you develop your skills.
Nancy, is it fair to say if your expectation is to be a perfect parent for this child, you're probably being unrealistic?
Absolutely.
Setting your bar a little high?
There is no perfect parent. And in fact, the training that Bill was talking about actually helped my husband and I become better parents for our own child. And the trainings were phenomenal. I mean, the initial certification training was like a 30-hour course, so that was a big investment. But we learned so much, and there was many things that we learned in the class that were like, really, we're being taught this? But we've actually been able to use that, again, with our own son and also with our fosters.
Yeah. So tell us more about your story. So how long ago was this that you decided to bring a foster child into your home?
Well, we got our certification a year and a half ago. So we're still fairly new to the system. It's been tough. I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. It's painful, it's dark, it's depressing, it's sad, it's painful. I said that because it's really painful.
But these children sometimes come from some, as we said, difficult situations.
They come wounded. They're emotionally, psychologically, physically, wounded and scarred, and we need to care and love for them while their family situation is getting fixed, however that may be. But the majority of the time, there's light, there's love, there's laughter, and it's those moments that refuel me to keep me strong and keep me going. For example, seeing a shy, awkward teenage girl who had zero self-confidence through the months build that self-confidence up, that she was able to give a speech in front of 75 people. Or walking out into my garage and seeing a teenage boy sitting on the garage floor with my husband learning how to check the tire pressures of the car. And over the summer, my own son teaching a young boy how to cast a fishing rod for the first time, and then seeing the ear-to-ear grin when he catches his first fish, and then the chaos that ensued because they're like, okay, so now how do we get the fish off the hook? So it's moments like that that make the journey so worth it in the end, because we're changing lives, and I feel so honored to be a part of that.
Yeah. As you know, I'm an adoptive parent, and there are episodes like going to bed thinking, I'm the worst parent in the world. And the next morning, that child saying, that's one of the best days of my life.
Right.
And I'm like, seriously? Yeah. And your training sessions, I will also vouch for, because I think it was still Parsons.
Yep.
Then.
Yep.
But it is amazing how many times some of these classes and role-playing situations you go through, and then it comes up.
Yes.
In the reality when you have this child in front of you.
Yeah.
Interesting. And there is also, is there not, sometimes there is reaction you need to deal with amongst your family members, people who are already in your life. Is that right? And I mean, sometimes they may have different views of what you're doing, may not understand what's going on here.
Yeah. Yes, well, one of the concerns that we had, that we discussed as a family in deciding our certification, was how is the extended family going to accept a stranger in their home? Because basically, while we're caring for this child 24/7, when we go to visit grandma and grandpa, how are they going to deal with it? And it's just been amazing, because it's been all open arms. And I was saying earlier too, is we're a very big hockey family. And so you have that extended hockey family, and those folks have been, very welcoming to any of the children that have been in our care as well.
So, do you think you've made a difference?
Oh, absolutely. It's made a difference not only to the child, but to the child's biological family, and ourselves, because it made us a better person for it. And we've learned a lot through the process. Like I said, with the matching, I wanted an infant in the worst way. But then I realized, we're older in our years and we have an independent teenage son, and that was going to really not be the best fit for us. So you really have to do a lot of soul searching as to what are your tolerance levels, what changes are you willing to make within your own lifestyle for these children. And it's just been amazing. And I have to say that working with the foster agency was nothing like I thought it was going to be. Again, one of our concerns was, okay, so we get placed with a child, then what? Are we going to be left, out there alone? And we learned very quickly that that's not the case. There is this large team that's been assembled around this child, and the foster parent is an integral part of that team. And the agency, they provide the trainings, and there's online trainings too. It's not always face-to-face trainings that we needed to do. But they truly valued us as a foster family. In fact, earlier this week, a little boy who we were caring for was moved to a relative's house on Monday. And it's sad. You actually go through a mourning process when you lose a little one, because that child that you would tuck in at bed at night or a kiss on the forehead's no longer there. The next morning, the first text I got was from the agency asking me how I was doing. And that really speaks volumes of Northeast and the agency that I'm connected with.
And permanency is, that's what I think is our goal with all of these children. We want them to have permanency in their lives. To see a child go home, to work with a child for a year, and see their family work on the issues that kind of brought their children into our care, we want to see them improve that. I'll say to families, I want you to take your children home. We never want to see them again. That's when we know we're truly successful, because you are successful with your children. And so permanency, we're, foster parents and our whole team is all part of that permanency process to help these children, find a place.
So my impression is, Nancy, you've had more than one foster child in your home?
Yes.
And you mentioned the birth parents. So how does that go? Because again, you have stated a stated goal is return the birth child to their birth parents. But if there is something in between necessary, that's where a family like Nancy's can come in. So how is it when you're working with you have this child in your home, and but you're also working with their parents, their birth parents?
Yes, and each child is different. Each case is different. What I found most unique about this, I wasn't expecting to have such close relationships with some of these birth parents. In fact, one mother I constantly talked to find out what the likes and dislikes of the child was. Was there any fears that the child had? Is there anything that I should be aware of? I even had a situation where I wasn't quite sure to know how to handle it with the child, and I called the mother, and the mother talked me through it. And likewise, because the mother was thankful, like, okay, so it wasn't just me that was experiencing these behaviors with the child, that we know that this is something that was normal for the child to act like.
So you approach it like a team.
Exactly. It's very much a team. And that, I think, was the most surprising. Not only the team from the agency, the number of people in the agency, but you have lawyers involved, you have social services, as well as the family and the parents and extended family members.
Foster parenting is not the same as adoption. Do some of these relationships, though, last for a lifetime?
Many of them do. I would say probably most of them do, because just examples, a lot of when the children go home to their families, they will afterwards call their previous foster parents. The bio parents will call the foster parents saying, what were you doing that helped my child through this type of a situation? It's information and knowledge that you just can't, live without sometimes. I mean, we want to make sure that we're a team. I keep saying permanency. We're a team that helps these children, these families find permanency. And you got to share your information. Doesn't do us any good to keep that information to ourselves. We're working with our parents. We want them to be successful.
Right. And it's not so much, it's not so much about the permanency in my view, it's the normalcy. I want the child to be able to come into my house and have a normal childhood while they're under my care.
Yeah. There may be a family out there that's saying we'd like to do this, but boy, it's expensive raising a child. Is there some financial support for these families?
Yeah, there are stipends that come from the government or the state, and that will help you in your home. It's different for every child, depending on a number of different scenarios. Is it enough to do everything? No, it's not enough to do everything. I see she's laughing already. You know, it's not enough, but it is there to help you with your children.
Yeah, I have heard some shocking statistics about kids who don't have a stable home. Tell me about you know, their chances of going to college, their chances of staying employed.
Oh, they drop. You know, and that's why we always talk about, you know, getting these children to some place that they call home. You know, there are children who, you know, we also do a lot of adoptions. You know, so there are a lot of children that, you know, they'll get adopted within our families. Then there are those children that are 17 years old that maybe they don't get adopted, but they go off and they're living on their own. Well, we still want to make sure they're connected up, even though they're 19, 20 years old. We want to connect them with college. We want to connect them with education. You know, we're doing all that work with them, and the place where most of those children come back to is their previous foster parents. Even though they weren't adopted, those are their parents, you know, in many ways.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so how confident should a potential foster parent that's watching right now be that the foster child they are paired with is a good fit?
I think they should be very confident that we do everything we can to know as much as we can about the child coming into us, and that through our training and through our knowledge of our foster families, we know everything we can know about our foster families to help them match up as best as we can.
If I may add to that, one of the challenges we had to go through for certification was sitting down and looking at what can we handle in our home. And it's actually kind of painful, because my husband and I sat down and realized, you know, we're not able to handle a child with heavy special needs. We're just not equipped. It's not in our wheelhouse. We don't have the skill set to handle that. And that's okay, because there's families out there that are. And that was really revealing as to, you know, what can we handle and what we can't handle. What are the age groups that we would want in our home? We also realized that it's best that we only have a boy placed in our home, because we have a son. And I would not want to leave my son in a foster daughter home alone together, because out of best practice, you know, there's things that you need to follow. And so you really need to be true to yourself as to what your tolerances are. And then my matches so far have been wonderful, because the agency follows what my kind of requirements are, and we've kind of went outside, you know, the requirements a little bit, and it's okay.
Well, what we do at the very beginning, you know, we kind of develop a profile for you of, like, you know, what you're really looking for, you know, in a child, and what you can handle, and knowing yourself, because that's the most important thing.
Be honest with yourself.
Yes, be honest with yourself, and we need to be honest with you as well, too, to help you see what's going to match for you.
So, Give Hope a Home. Where can people find out more about Give Hope a Home and Northern Rivers Family of Services?
We have a website, givehopeahome.com. We also have a Facebook page, which is Give Hope a Home, and you can find us there. Lots of information on our Facebook page. We have a really community of people that have kind of gathered on there that share lots of bits of information. We post a lot of stuff there about what you can do.
You're also looking, I should mention, for part-time foster parents, I'll call them?
Yes, respite parents, we call them. Respite or part-time. And the goal of a respite parent are those parents who don't quite want to jump all the way in yet, but they want to get a flavor of how this is going to be for them. And they're actually a huge part of our foster care system, because foster parents need a break sometimes. The kids need a break sometimes. The children, when they're with their families, their biological families, we do prevention contracts with counties that help the children just take a break for a little bit, so that they don't need to come into care, and we can support our families that way.
Right. In fact, my first 2 placements were respite, so we kind of started off a little slow, and they were wonderful. They were just weekend visits.
All right. So, again, we're going to provide a link on our website at WNYT.com. Try to hook you up with Northern Rivers Family of Services, and you can learn a lot more about Give Hope a Home. Bill Marszalek and Nancy Carr, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Forum 13. I'm Phil Bailey. We'll see you next week.